Hello, my PP. Today is a new day, a new edition of our video, and today's edition I will be teaching you guys how to make hot spices, commonly known as hot pepper. Before I proceed, I'm gonna be showing you what items I will be using to make the dish. Right here in the bowl we have the hot spicy, which is the hot pepper itself. This pepper is usually very hot, so I tend to use just a few for the sake of the toddlers that I have at home, so that the end result is not too hot that the kids will not be able to eat. So I get just like 5 or 6 of it. And then I also like to use one fresh tomato. As you can see, this is the plum tomato. I like to use this other one than the other tomatoes that you see in the store, because this one turned to have little amount of juice in the tomato. And then I always like to use one green pepper as well as one orange pepper. And then to add up with the spices, I like to use honey cube, which is again Maggi cube, that I will always be using with most of the dishes that I will be making. And I also use a pinch of salt and also some canola oil, which sometimes you can prefer to use your olive oil or groundnut oil or vegetable oil. Once as I have all my ingredients ready, I'm gonna go ahead and wash the yellow pepper, then put it in a parchment paper wrap, cooked it for at least 10 minutes before blending. The reason why it's good to cook it first before you blend is because you want to reduce the amount of smell in the house, especially when the toddler at home. Because if you start blending before you start cooking, it's gonna cause a lot of sneezing and maybe coughing. So a good practice is always to boil the hot pepper, yellow pepper, first in a parchment paper wrap for at least 10 minutes before you blend. So I'm gonna go ahead and then wash the yellow pepper. As you can see, I have the yellow pepper in my sink. I'm gonna go ahead and then wash it up, then put it in a parchment paper, boil it for at least 10 minutes. So when I talked of a parchment paper, this is how it looks like. It's almost like an aluminum foil, but again, it's not an aluminum foil. This one is actually a paper, a baking paper or something that you can use to cook. I use it to cook some of my African dishes. So I'm gonna go ahead and then cut a little panel of the paper and then wrap the paper in it, then cook it for 10 minutes. This is how a sheet of the parchment paper looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and then wrap the pepper in here and then give it a boil for 10 minutes. That's the yellow pepper in the parchment paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and then fold it up and then cook it up again, as I said, for 10 minutes. That's the pepper. So I'm gonna transfer it into my pot and then add a little bit of water for it to boil. Usually I have just a little amount of water in the pot for it to boil for like 10 minutes. Then I turn off the gas, let it cool down for another 15 minutes or so before I blend. As the pepper is cooking, I then go ahead, wash the green pepper, the tomato, and then start to blend the green and the yellow pepper together. So I turn off my faucet, let the water run down a little bit, then I put the green pepper and the yellow pepper, wash them well, sometimes with 2 water, to remove any pesticides from it before blending. I also do same with my tomato. I washed it up, rinsed it, then before I blend. Once as the pepper is cooking, I tend to make sure that I still have enough of water in my pot, and then I also check on my boiler to make sure that the water that I need to peel out the tomato peelings, it's hot enough for me to then pour it onto my tomato to take out the skin. As the water looked boiled enough, as you can see vapor coming out of the boiler, I then transfer some quantity of the hot water onto the tomato so that it can peel off the skin for me. Again, the reason why I turn to peel off the skin with tomato before I cook is because the skin tends to make some people have reflux. And again, with spicy food, you want to minimize the amount of things that actually provoke certain people to have a reflux action. So I always like to take out the skin from the tomato so that people that tend to have reflux action or people that have GERD could be able to keep down their meal when they eat it. So I cover it up for it to peel out quick. Because my blender is not that big, so I always try to blend one of the peppers at once before I do the other. So I do one at a time. So after blending the orange pepper, I'm gonna go ahead also and blend the green pepper, but then mix them all in the same bowl. So this is the blended green pepper. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer it into the yellow blended pepper. Once I've taken out the skin from my tomato, which you can see it's right here in the sink, that's the skin. Once I've taken that out, I then go ahead to blend the tomato. I take out the seeds also, then blend the tomato. The tomato skin is out, the seeds are out, and now it's ready to go in the blender. Once as my pepper is ready, I then remove it, set it aside for it to cool down for another 5 minutes before I also blend it. Here is the pepper. I'm gonna set it aside for 5 minutes for it to cool down. Then I'm gonna come back and take out the stump and blend it. As my boiled pepper is getting cool, I also transfer the ground tomato paste into a nice pot. Then add a little bit of oil and let it boil for at least 5 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the oil into the tomato and then give it a nice boil. Once I've taken out the stump from the yellow pepper, I then transfer it into my blender, then blend it. As the tomato is cooking, I open the pot and then give it a nice stir so that it doesn't burn. Then cover it again up, give it another cook for like 3 minutes. Once as the tomato looks ready, I'm gonna go ahead, or at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and transfer the blended green pepper, yellow pepper, and the hot pepper itself into the pot so that it can cook again for the remaining 3 minutes until all the water gets dry. Once I've transferred my green pepper, the orange pepper, and the hot pepper itself into the pot, I give it a stir. Then add some little salt and then cover it up to cook until the water dries off. Then I add the honey cube or Maggi, then turn off the fire. Again, this is usually how I add salt into my pot, so I always go ahead, pour it a little bit while shaking, and then taste it. A lot of the time it never goes bitter, but often it's not enough, which someone again can add it on their own, or it's always just good to be eaten like that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and cover the pot and give it again a nice cook until the water dries up. As the spices are cooking together, from time to time you open the pot and give it a nice stir so it doesn't get burnt at the bottom of the pot. Still have a little bit of water, so I covered it up again for it to cook a little bit. But at this time I can go ahead and add my Maggi, which with this quantity that I made, I'm just gonna add 1 honey cube or 1 Maggi to make it very tasteful. Once I've added my Maggi cube, I then again stir, give it a nice stir, and then taste to make sure that the salt is also okay at this point. The salt looks good, the honey cube looks good, and I'm just gonna cook it again a little bit more to really take out the little excess water that is still on it. I like my pepper when there's no water in it at all, because when the water is completely dried out, that's longer how the pepper too can stay in the fridge, or the hot spicy can stay in the fridge. But for some people, if you leave it like this, it could be used for the same day or 2 days before it can lose the taste. But if the water is completely dry from it, as I normally make it to preserve it in the fridge, I usually leave it again to dry out a little bit. Again, I stir it to see if the water is completely out. As we all can see, it had just a little bit more of water for it to be ready. Now you give it again a stir. Once as it starts making as if it's forming crumbs like this in the pot, you know that your spicy or hot pepper is ready. At this point, you can turn off the fire, and then you let it cold. Once as it is cold, you can then transfer it to a bowl that you can save in the fridge for later use. Usually these hot spices, you can use it to eat any meal already prepared, or you can use it to eat like a roasted fish, or you eat something that we call pop-off or le beignet in French, or le gâteau in French with it. So I like pepper in my food when I see it, because pepper turns to like help with digestion and also helps to burn down some of the fat or cholesterol in the body. Thank you so much for being with me with this edition of the video, and I hope to meet with you again next time. Bye bye, my pee-pee.